Tick-tock, tick-tock. We're just under an hour away before Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana gives us that national budget speech. Of course, we're expecting a lot from him, but he has very little to work with, and there's so many priorities that he needs to speak to. The one big issue, of course, is tax. Where is SARS going to get all the money from? Where is National Treasury going to get all the money from in order to be able to field all the priorities that we have to fulfill as a society? Well, to discuss this further, I'm joined by Deborah Tickle. She is a tax expert. She's been there, done that. She's worked at the KPMGs. She's done academia. She's a real expert. Thank you very much for joining us, Deborah. So where can we expect the fiscus to get the money from? Because obviously part of National Treasury's job is to try and get more money.
That's exactly right. And I sometimes think of Minister Godongwana as a head of a household who receives a certain amount of money, and then he's given the job to decide where to disperse it. And at the moment he's got a lot of naughty children spending the money not correctly. But let's just unpack where the money comes from. And if you look at the number of taxpayers, because the majority of our money comes from tax, the number of people who are paying tax on taxable income of more than 500,000 Rand is just over 1 million. That's less than 2% of our population, and yet those people pay 72% of the individual's tax. So you say, well, okay, that's a big amount of money, and there's very few people paying it, and then we've got a population of 60 million. Then, well, maybe it's the big corporates, but there are of the 800,000 corporates that are registered for tax, there are only 308 who have more than 200 million taxable income, and they're paying over 50% of the corporate tax. So the question is, where is it going to come from? We need a bigger tax base. We need more people employed or economically active who are earning, because I always say it's a privilege to pay tax, because if you're earning, you have to pay tax, and very few of us in this country are actually earning. So we need more people earning, and we need more people to pay tax so that we can pay for the big ticket items. So then the next question, if you'd like me to go, is should we raise further debt? Now, if we look at the debt and how that has increased over the years, in 2008-9, the debt was 627 billion, 2008-9. It's now over 4.7 trillion. What that means to us is that over 300 billion rands of our money, 1.6 trillion that we collect, in other words, almost 20% of the money we collect in tax goes to paying interest, which means we cannot go there. I mean, we're talking about taking on some of the Eskom debt. We can't go and raise more debt to supplement the fact that we can't raise more tax.
So if we can't really raise that much tax and, put more pressure on a narrow tax base, as you say, what then is the answer? Because at the end of the day, we have all these priorities. We must pay social grants. We must find a mechanism where we can make the social relief of distress grant a permanent feature. We must fund infrastructure. We must fund education, the whole social wage situation. Government has promised as well to spend much more on law enforcement and so on, and deal with the issue of corruption. Where are we going to get all these resources from?
That's a very good question. And what I'd like to point out to you is that in 1998 versus today, we have, in real terms, so at today's rates, we collect 5 times more money in tax, so in real terms. So it's not a question of we have too little money to spend, it's how we spend it. So if we just look at the way we spend, the 2 new power stations you talked about at Eskom, the 2 new power stations were meant to cost 90 billion Rand. They cost 400 billion Rand. That's an overspending. If we look at our education, we're spending a significant amount on education, and we're quite high in the world on the amount we spend per capita, but we're not spending it well because we still have a very low level in the world of literacy and maths. So despite the matric results, our position in the world is very low. And we can talk about the SOEs till the cows come home. But essentially, the problem is that we're not spending efficiently. We need to be looking at what we've got and then spending it in a lot more efficient manner so that we get bang for our buck. In the sonar, the President mentioned that he wants to look at rationalising various departments. We've had that promise before, but I think we're at a precipice. I think we have to do something now. If we don't, well, we're going to fall over that precipice. We've got things like ratings agencies facing us, Financial Action Task Force facing us, and of course, millions and millions of people who don't have anything to do, who need to have something to do to contribute so that we can rebuild the infrastructure.
Deborah, thank you very much for some of those insights there. Very tricky situation for the Finance Minister and National Treasury to get the balance right. The tax base is narrow. It's going to be difficult to try and get more money from that. And on top of that, we are hearing stories about immigration, not just of high net worth individuals, but ordinary South African professionals, accountants, lawyers or whatever, deciding to move overseas for one reason or another rather than stay here in South Africa and contribute. And of course, that's one too many taxpayers to leave the country. So of course, we will have more for you as we progress with this day ahead of that budget speech, which is taking place at 2 o'clock. We'll see you then. Studio, it's back to you.